is like perfect allegiance or loyalty toward the corporation, like thinking of the corporation, of the company, before thinking of themselves.
So, yeah, exactly. And essentially, I mean, this system was so good at creating soldiers that I guess the soldiers kind of, died or whatever, or lived completely towards, I guess, the emperor or the aristocracy at the time, or, the empire as a whole, or... But you wonder, I mean, I'm one of those people that's kind of the belief that, after those world wars, that in the sort of institution of corporations, that I believe that corporations became kind of a living thing, that we created living things, that that the soldiers were essentially created for the empire, but they were there to be used by somebody, by something. And what was using them? What was using these soldiers? They were being basically led through this factory line and created to be, soldiers for a war, but there's no war anymore. So, okay, but the system hasn't changed. They're still being, produced in the sense that they will just follow orders and they'll just do whatever you want, and they're completely easily manipulated. And so you would say, okay, well, there must be people at the top. There must be some sort of aristocracy. There must be some sort of leadership that are just like using these people for their own benefit, and they're living in some sort of state of bliss, because like they just have all this freedom and all this financial freedom, and they're just like using all the cogs in the machine for their own will. But I don't see that either. Hey, I mean, I teach the presidents, I teach the CEOs, I teach some people in these incredibly wealthy families that. And they look pretty damn, stress-ridden, and so it's like that whole universal law, like energy isn't created or destroyed. Is that correct? So if the cogs in the machine are not working for the presidents or the CEOs or the top of the sort of corporate line, and if you could essentially even kill a president or kill a CEO and the company still survives and the corporation still continues, and even when the corporation gets kind of weaker, another one just absorbs it. I'm like struggling to find out like why corporations aren't living at this point, like why they're not like some sort of like giant amoebas that are just like,
they are.
They are, right? I mean, they're living.
Yeah, they're living entities. I don't know. Are you familiar with the work or the podcast of Christopher Ryan?
No,
His podcast is Tangentially Speaking. I highly recommend you find it online and subscribe to it. And I think that many of the things he proposes, and he will also propose in his upcoming book, Civilized to Death, speak exactly about what you're saying, like for example, there is this meme of the robot revolution, right? When robot machines will, rebel against humans and take over the world. And his idea is that has already happened. Only those machines, those non-living organisms, are called corporations. Our corporations have become these living entities that are kind of like self-serving, and humans are only like a part of the system that are served to maintain them indefinitely, because companies are pretty much immortal organisms. Their founding fathers will die, or they will be taken over, but the company is supposed to live on indefinitely. I mean, people who run Coca-Cola are never thinking, well, Coca-Cola at one point will, cease to exist. No. They think that will be served, forever and ever, 1,000 years in the future, whatever.
Even if one person in Coca-Cola does think that, and, they try to make plans to say, screw Coca-Cola, we want to create some sort of independent free enterprise that doesn't have to, constantly grow. He'll be fired. He'll be taken over by somebody else who will. So it's a completely, So I mean, it's hard not to see. I mean, at this stage, look, they're living. We have living things that are growing us essentially. That we're growing, corn to feed cows that feed us. That essentially we are living completely dependently on corporations essentially. But
it reminds me of the evolution of institutions. It feels like as soon as they get to a certain size, they're unstoppable. They have a life of its own and they keep going. Like, so it's not as if there's people, at the top of these. Well, I mean, I don't know. I struggle with that. Is there an intention to do what they're doing? we're basically being
I don't
poisoned.
think they have. I mean, if, Christopher Ryan again says, maybe if the CEO of Exxon woke up, one day after, taking a heroic dose of mushrooms, or having an ayahuasca experience in Costa Rica or whatever, and woke up and said, my God, we are, destroying the planet. We need to change. Exxon needs to, switch from fossil fuels to renewable energies, and if he just the next meeting of stockholders, he will be fired, like almost immediately.
Sure.
Because it's not conducive to the preserving of the entity that is the company.
But the one thing that I think I've discovered, and it's so easy to be incredibly frustrated by this and kind of pissed off because you feel like you're completely manipulated and your life is completely dependent on this stuff and it's just impossible to break free. Like if you feel like you're a part of this corporation, it's like no better than, say, your finger being attached to your hand, which lives completely, its existence is completely and entirely for you. It doesn't run off in the middle of the night and have a party with other fingers. It's just there. It's stuck to you. It's completely like dependent on you. And it's easy to feel like you are, basically the finger of a corporation. This is completely dependent on it, and your entire life is just like unmanageable. But I think there's a way out, and I think it's easy to look at corporations like monsters, but essentially they're living things, and I'll agree with that, but they're not necessarily monsters. They're just these living things that we've created that are just not purposefully wanting to hurt anything, but just kind of.
Yeah.
And I think that we can live independently from them, and I think that there is a very very structured sort of way of removing yourself from it, and not necessarily taking that much flack for doing it. I think you can live independently of it.
What, like getting off the grid?
Not even. So it comes back into that, what I emailed you guys originally. I emailed you about a Japanese word called bonno.
Yep.
And bonno is essentially what Buddha shed in order to gain enlightenment. And bonno is basically anything that inhibits you from, we have these natural forces, like, we're naturally, we want to survive. If a car comes at us, we jump out of the way not because we're scared necessarily, but you have this survival instinct. You have an instinct to breed, we have the sense of community that we want to be amongst each other, these instincts basically that are the same as living things. And through civilization, we've kind of gone away from other living things, and this is basically the attachment of our bonno. Bonno is the thing that gets in the way of your happiness, essentially. It's the one thing that keeps you locked into a system, and it's about systematically destroying the bonno. So when you read about Buddha, he would have gone on hunger strikes, or he would have given up all his his wealth, or he would have lived on the streets, or he would have gone through all this stuff. This is the direct attack on bonno. So as in a modern day society, we look at our desire and our jealousies and our angers and our shames and our embarrassments. We think that's normal. We think we're just, humans are born like this. This is what makes me unique. This is my personality. This is just natural. And it's so not. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it might be some sort of social engineering to make us believe that those things are normal, but they're certainly not. And they're not something that you'd have to deal with. There's certainly things that you can defeat and things that you can get over. And the second we start looking at I don't want to repeat the jealousies, desires, and all this stuff over and over again, so I'll just say the bonno. But all of those things, they're all connected together, and they are all overcomable easily. I wouldn't say necessarily easily, but they are overcomable, and they shouldn't be looked at as something that you just were born with and something that you have to deal with and that you just can't overcome and that you must just suffer with for the rest of your life. I think they're very overcomable, and that we should be directly attacking them, from one day to the next.
So is that like what Conor Habib was talking about on our show, where you face your fear, like whatever you're really afraid of, if you sort of tackle that it can get rid of some bono?
Conor is, he's an amazing person. He's got an amazing way of looking at things, and his brain works so well. And we differ a little bit. I mean, he's got a sort of a magical spiritual sense of things, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it might be true. I don't really know that. What I know is that in my life, I've looked at really practical, real ways to attack those bono. So, I have a lot of people when I talk to them about this sort of stuff, they say like, well, if I want that Louis Vuitton bag, or, if I want this item and, I want that, and then I buy it, it's happiness. That feels good. Like if I don't buy that, then I'm not going to feel happy. And the kind of analogy that I use is that, say you're walking on and a mosquito bites you, and if it bites you, you get itchy, right? And then you scratch it. And scratching it feels good, definitely. But surely having it never bite you feels better, or is better. Surely you prefer that the mosquito never bit you. We tend to think that scratching that mosquito bite is happiness. So like having that jealousy means that you love somebody, or having that embarrassment means, or that shame of your nudity feels like, when you get nudity, then your heart beats a little bit more, and that makes it more exciting. Or wanting something like a Louis Vuitton bag and then buying it, and you feel so happy. No, this is the result of a negative emotion of becoming itchy, for example, and then you scratch, but you're just fighting to get back to zero. What I'm talking about is existing in a plane that doesn't have any of that, where you don't have fear, you don't have shame, you don't have embarrassment, you don't have things like guilt or pride or all these bono that just get in the way of you and your happiness. And I've got a lot of people who a lot of students or a lot of people that I talk to say, well, there's meditation, or you can go climb a mountain, or you can go for a great hike or travel or something like that. But I see this as ignoring the bono. I don't see this as tackling the root of bono. Like if you build up a large amount of stress on your weekly basis, and then you go climb a mountain every weekend, yeah, you can get back to zero. I get that, but you're not. It's like if you have pimples and you put pimple cream on the pimple, you're not necessarily fixing the source of the problem, right? You're just fixing the pimple itself. And I look at sort of climbing mountains or going on these massive hikes or something like that, or this, it is stress relief. I get that. And, like somehow it makes life bearable, but, meditation as well, like I would see it as stress relief, but also maybe it's useful in the sense that you could target the bono better. You could sort of reflect on where your bono is. But I think we know what our bono are. I think we're very aware of what our bono are, and I think that we need to tackle them directly. And I think that requires getting a little crazy.
What do you mean?
This is the part that I really like. So my suggestion to everybody is to think about what's logical in this world, to think about where logic lies and what's illogical. So, for example, to be embarrassed about your nudity, is that logical? Like, does that somehow help your life? Is being afraid of a cockroach logical? Does that somehow contribute to your happiness? Does, having, feelings of that macho thing where I'm this guy, and I have to, appear to people in this sort of strong sense, or, these feelings, I guess it's related to pride maybe. Does that help your life? Is that a logical behavior? And to go through your day and think about how many illogical things you do, that don't contribute to your happiness, that don't contribute to, that nourish your life, and to go through and attack them. And I would say, in order to attack them, say, for example, the cockroach, if you're scared of cockroaches, pick the fuckers up, pick up 20 until you're not scared anymore. I mean, if it's a massive fear, I'm not saying we all have, particular bigger fears. If that's your biggest fear, maybe attack something else first. They are all connected, so you can't attack all of them going indirectly. So if you are, say, afraid of rejection, go out on the street right now and get rejected immediately. If you have this sort of macho thing where, you feel like you need to be, appear in a certain way in public, go wear women's clothing and walk down the biggest main street right now, immediately. I mean, your happiness relies on it. And you go to extremes to attack them because it's about not accepting illogical things in your life. We have a very finite time on this earth, and we might believe in the afterlife, and you might believe that It doesn't really matter what I do now because there's going to be an afterlife and I'll be happy then. And that's fair enough. I mean, if you're a spiritual person and that's what you believe, then that's okay, and then you can just kind of waste this life a little bit or just kind of chill out right now, and then enjoy it later in heaven. And I hope that works out, but that might happen and it might not happen. I'm not saying it is or isn't, but I kind of want to enjoy what life I have right now. So I'm going to make whatever efforts I can to make sure that I'm as happy as possible, like on this earth right now, in this lifetime, in this like finite little time that I have. So no bars held, man. Like I go out every day, and if I have a sense that like I have some sort of irrational fear or irrational jealousy or irrational sort of anything, I attack it. And I think I've attacked it to such an extent that I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's not much left. And every inch, every step of that path that I've taken, it's so rewarding. It's just amazing how good it is. It's so good.
So how do you get to the point where you recognize that stuff, though? Because, I mean, half the time I'm walking around in a daze. I mean, isn't there a sort of awareness or meditation that has to come first in order to gain some sort of awareness of that? Like how you're feeling and to even recognize those thoughts? Like I can't even drink enough water during the day. Never mind about, never mind about recognizing like where my bono is.
Well, I mean, can you go out on the street right now and talk to a complete stranger and feel completely comfortable doing that? Can you get naked in front of people and completely feel comfortable doing that? Can you call your parents up right now and like be 100% honest about everything that you do and everything that you think? Can you, approach your boss and just like, just have it out. This is how I feel, or I'm not necessarily saying to do stuff that really, detriment your life. Attack it where you can, because I mean, come on. I mean, you're aware when you get nervous or like, oh, I'm embarrassed, and and you shouldn't be embarrassed, and you shouldn't have any sort of shame in what you're doing. You should be able to be completely honest about what you're doing.
I'm doing a podcast with Darren, though. That's hard. I'm constantly being
here to test you.
Constantly being bonoed here.
Bonoed, bent over and bonoed.
Yeah, I think like, look, there's a lot of people in this world who might think, hey, like I'm not that scared of things. I'm not that, shy, or I'm not that embarrassed. I'm certainly better than my neighbor or something like that. But, let's see how far that path goes. See how far. I mean, would you really be comfortable in women's clothes at a bar in downtown Calgary? I mean, could you handle that? Like,
on Halloween.
Could you hold an?
Or if I was drinking.
Could you hold? I mean, like, I don't know we all have our hang-ups, man. It depends what your hang-ups are. Like, I mean, if you have a thing with gay people, I suggest, holding another man's hand and walking down the street. If you have a problem with talking to women or something, like, I suggest go out and talk to 10 women today. Or, I don't know what everybody's, but surely, we all have stuff. We all have stuff, and it's all about attacking that, I think.
Yeah, I like that.
How much of that is like, going inward maybe and figuring out, what your triggers are, for lack of a better word. That word's been fucking hijacked.
Sure, but I mean, do you really not know what your triggers are? I mean, surely like what you're scared of or what you're shy about, what you're embarrassed about. Do you have jealousy? I mean, are you comfortable with your wife being completely free and capable of doing whatever she wants to do? Like, that like they're all connected. They're all like, I think everybody knows what they are. And if you don't, then reflect or, trial and error, go out and do something a little crazy and see if you can do it,
Yeah.
Nothing that gets you arrested, but like,
well,
do something a little bit weird.
It just seems like so many people are kind of broken, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems like, and I mean, I'm on that list too, but I mean, I've gone to a little bit of counseling here and there and at least scratched enough away to be able to start to notice that break, you know what I mean? And then you're like,
right.
Then you know about it, and you're like, you can start noticing the way you act. And I mean, some of it is subconscious until you can kind of pull it out and be aware of it. And it just seems like when you multiply that by like 500 million people, that's what you've got walking around North America right now. There's a bunch of people that haven't dealt with, they're just bottling things up, and, everyone's having these same, for the most part, I'd say all these people are having the same sort of thoughts and impulses, and everyone's kind of ashamed to talk about them. And I mean,
well, it's social engineering as well, right? We're socially engineered to kind of have that sort of shit. The bono is what makes you a slave to the system. The bono is the string that attaches you to the system. And if you want to get off, it's about cutting it. And you might not necessarily know where all your shit is, but like, I mean, you might know where a couple are, and when you attack those, it opens up other windows, and and then that opens up other windows. So you don't necessarily know where all your issues lie, but taking one step at a time and attacking whatever you can attack, every day,
It's
as soon as you can.
It's a good episode. This weekend I'm doing a refuge recovery. Like the speaker's coming from LA. He's one of the founders of Refuge Recovery and works for Against the Stream Buddhism and stuff. And I'm doing like a 4-hour inventory workshop where gotta like look into all the shit that goes on in my head and all the shit I've done and like actually like do some work on it. So that should be bringing up lots of Bono.
But like, what would they suggest you do about it? Like, say that Bono does come up, do you meditate on it? Like, do you?
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, probably. I mean, I think writing it down is one thing. So you're writing it down. You're meditating on bringing it up and then writing it down. And I think just that part of acknowledgement and writing it down is a good step in releasing some of it, I think.
Oh, definitely. I'm definitely not knocking meditation or anything like that. It's just that in my life, I think when I was younger, I was in the military for 3 years and in military school, I should say, and kind of a harsh one. And I kind of, I don't know, I figured I had a bit of a hard, upbringing. And it created so much stress that I was like, fuck this, for me to have to think about my future right now is just impossible. So I'm just going to convince myself that I'm going to die when I'm 30.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
If I can somehow get to 30, like I think I've won, I thought that I'd win somehow. And it cleared the path for me to do what I wanted to do. And to make sure that I wasn't like slowly tiptoeing about, and I don't even want to say it's like self-improvement because a lot of times that can just sound like masturbation. But I mean, it's like, but
nothing wrong with that.
Oh no, fine, absolutely fine with that. But absolutely like making sure that I didn't take care of this shit later, or I was like tiptoeing about it, but like attacking it and making myself sure that I could be as happy as I possibly could and do all the shit that I wanted to do before I was 30. Like just really go for it. And yeah, it's like meditation is going to help and writing shit down is going to help, but nothing is more fantastic than wearing women's clothes walking down the street, and having that shame on your face and that embarrassment or anything, like whether you have issues.
Well, it could be like afraid of heights and jumping out of a plane. I mean, I do think that's a great way to deal with this stuff. But I mean,
do you know who Alejandro Jodorowsky is?
No, I'm not that well read, unfortunately.
Don't worry about it. I think that you have managed to figure a lot of shit out without reading books. Okay, so Alejandro Jodorowsky is a very interesting character. He was born in Chile. I think he's living in Paris right now. So he is kind of like a crazy film director. He filmed a lot of classic or cult movies like El Topo and Montaña Sagrada, Santa Sangre, and he's also very interested in things like the tarot reading and all that stuff, and he coined a term called psychomagic. So his idea of psychomagic is kind of like what you're proposing here. It's kind of like something of a shock therapy that involves magical thinking, theatricality, and performing something in order to elicit some kind of change in the person. For example, I think that I once heard him on a radio show here in Mexico, that a woman came to him, because she had a problem that she was terribly shy, and to the point that it was a real detriment to her life, her social relationships, whatever. And the recipe that he gave to her was kind of something like this, that he advised her to go and invite everybody she knew, like her family, friends, co-workers, acquaintances, neighborhoods, everybody she could, to her home, apartment, or whatever, And once everybody were gathered there, she will stand in front of the whole assembly, take off her clothes, and then, turn around, bend over, and showed everybody her ass.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Is that crazy enough for you?
I guarantee you will be cured for life of your shyness.
So people might say that that's radical or unbelievable, but what's radical is living with that stress for the rest of your life. No, I mean, like one action to take care of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can remind me of something that I myself did. And I also happen to be a very reclusive, very timid person. And in 2012, I went to the Paradigm Symposium in Minneapolis. This is when I met these two characters for the first time on the ground. And what I did was something kind of like something that I never would have done before. I went there and I presented myself in a luchador mask.
Okay.
Kind of like making a fool of myself. But it turned out to be a really liberating thing. And I remember being in the hotel foyer, thinking, should I do this or shouldn't I? Getting second thoughts. And then I was like, fuck it. I'm here in a country where nobody knows me, so if I make a fool of myself, so fucking what? And I went there and it was great. Everybody was, wow, and kind of like created this thing, of the red pill junkie with a luchador mask and all of that. And I think that, I think you're into something that, meditation and all of those things, I think they can help up to a point, but there's sometimes when you need to do some kind of like definite action in order to cure you from those biases or those fears that, like you are arguing, are feeding your bono.
Sure. And I mean, why not? I mean, like if you're not going to get arrested by going outside and complimenting 10 people right now, like going onto the street and saying, oh, nice hat, sir. And, oh, you lady over there, wonderful shoes, you're not going to get arrested, right? I mean, like, why not? What do you stand to lose? I mean, like you could gain so much and you're not going to lose anything from it. And your heart's going to beat and you'll feel like a little bit, dizzy perhaps, but it's liberating. It's just absolutely wonderful. Like, I mean, and there's so many biases. There's so many ways to attack. It's great. I mean, you could go to like a Britney Spears concert to the push your way to the front and just dance your ass off, whether you like it or not, just force yourself to it. Fuck it.
Yeah. Dancing came up for me right for now. Dancing and singing.
I'm a phenomenal dancer, so I don't have that problem.
I've seen you just stand in the middle of a dance floor with your one arm up in the air and just twirling around. That's all you're doing.
That's my move.
That's your move.
I do a pretty good hip rattle, too.
Yeah, no, definitely dancing, definitely getting in front of people, like singing out on the street, just doing anything that's completely absurd. Yeah, getting completely crazy on a day-to-day basis. And it's, there's also like management expectation, which is such an amazing thing as well. But like if, I teach these lessons and a lot of them are like corporate lessons and I'm supposed to go in there with like a suit and a tie and stuff like that. And I go in with like a tank top and, beach sandals and I know what I'm doing and I'm quite good at what I do and I'm very confident about what I do and I'm friendly and I'm kind and I'm smiling. But like immediately I'm just slamming all expectations that people have of me. And it's like, and it's starting, you're creating a completely clean slate where people can be like, well, like if you were to, dress up really nicely, like people might have a very high expectation of you and you might suffer a lot from that. If you're always the nice guy that says the right things, that's always, behaving correctly and doing, things according to how people think you should. I mean, it's an incredible weight of expectation.
Yeah?
I'm too politically correct.
You?
Oh, yeah, you.
No, but is there a part of that you believe, Darren, or
no?
You're just being sarcastic.
I was just being sarcastic.
Oh.
Yeah,
I tend to say the most inappropriate things all the time. My wife sometimes just looks at me and shakes her head. I'm like, sorry.
As long as those inappropriate things have like relatively good intentions, as long as you're trying to make people laugh, it never really comes off that bad, And it's one of those things about shedding your bono, which is amazing, is that you're capable of this thing called pure love. And people say that love is, it depends on your person, you know, like for him love is this, and for her love is that, and you know, love is a different thing for different people. But I disagree. Like, surely love, the very definition of love is just wanting other people to be happy, you know, like wanting what's best for them. Like, and that's it, right? I mean, if you have a kid, you just want your kid to be happy, right? No matter what, you know, and if you can just purely love everybody around you, like you just genuinely, you want nothing from them. You have no expectations. You just genuinely want everybody around you to be happy and just, you know, whatever's best for them, you know, and if you can really feel that, it just comes back double. Like, I mean, people are just so receptive and they soak it up and your life just gets so much better. Wow. And your relationships get better. And yeah,
this is
really great benefit.
This is what the guys in the chat room have been talking about, Grimsteak and these other guys, Darren. And they even talked about
check out Cruising with Steak.
Cruising with Steak in their podcast too. They were talking about love, right? How powerful love is. And they've been just going on and on. Like every morning he's in the chat room, love you guys. And he's not just saying that. He's really trying what you're talking about here, right? Love is the most powerful thing, right? It's either love or fear.
Well, yeah, it's like if you go to, you know, these scientists that travel around the world that study happiness. You know, I've actually spoken to quite a few of them, but they spend time in Bhutan, they spend time in Africa, and you go to Africa and it's nothing but dance songs. There's no like emo shit, you know, it's not like depressing sort of like Radiohead songs or anything. It's nothing but like dance songs. You go to like the Philippines or Thailand and it's just nothing but love songs. And it's like, well, why is that happening? And these people, they go around and they study that. And they come together and like the conclusion without any doubt is community. Is if you have a good sense of community. I mean, we're monkeys, right? I mean, if you put a monkey alone, it's depressed. If you put a monkey with like its tribe or whatever, with its group, then it's happy. And I mean, with a bare minimum amount of food and a bare minimum amount of water and, you know, what shelter, whatever, your basic population dynamics, like if you have community, you're happy. That's it, period. And, you know, if we recognize that and we understand that, like, our only source of happiness is going to be each other. So then you have to just smash away any barriers from you being with other people. And like whatever prejudices you have, whatever embarrassments you have, shames you have, prides you have, you just need to attack them immediately and just like love everybody as much as you can, because it's like your only chance of happiness. This road that I went down, whatever direction it led, was just wanting to be happy and me figuring out the most practical and sort of logical path to that happiness. You know, I'm not fucking around with, like, I'm not going off on tangents to try to get money first or like trying to like, you know, get security first or something like that. No, I wanted to walk as directly straight at happiness as possible. And that's all about destroying those barriers. And it's all about the bonheur, and then it's all about the pure love. It all ties in together. And it's all about just being able to, like I said, purely love the people around you and destroying whatever barriers there might be between you and doing that.
Yeah, but
so can you cheat that? Can you cheat that by just hanging around with people you love for a while and like slowly bringing other people in one by one?
Well, the thing is, if you only have a couple people, like it depends how many people. Like if you're relying on a couple people for, like, you know, your satisfaction and love, it puts a lot of stress on them, and it's a lot of stress on you as well. It's a lot of expectation and responsibility. So like as a communal person, you're going to want to spread that out as much as you can. So like you're not desperately reliant on whatever few loved ones you have. This whole isolation of the family unit is not human, really. I mean, we were tribal. We've been tribal for 99% of our existence. Like, and having like those friends and having those groups of people to spread that out a little bit is definitely a good idea.
Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about our tribal history and our sense of community, because I think one of the problems with community is that it tends to break down after a certain amount of number. Like, I don't know, there's a thing called the Dunbar's number.
150?
Yeah, 150 people is like the maximum amount of people that you can handle in your social circle. And after you go beyond that number, it becomes an abstraction that you really don't give a shit about those people. You know, it's a problem with living, you know, inside a small community in which everybody knows each other, and, you know, everybody tries to treat each other, you know, nicely. And if you see someone, you know, throwing garbage into the street, it wouldn't happen because everybody will notice and say, oh, look, Ricard, throw a can into the street, and everybody will say, oh, Ricard, you don't do that. And you wouldn't do that. But if you're living in a city like, I don't know, Osaka or Mexico City, 20 million people living here, and if someone throws something into the street, nobody says anything, because chances are you will never see that person ever again in your life. So that is something to consider, that how I think everything that you have proposed so far, I think it's great. But I think that there may be some caveats here that we need to take into consideration in order to try to more effectively, take advantage of it.
Do you mean like 50 people that you kind of just vaguely know, or like
150?
Was it 100?
150.
Because I mean, if you've got 150 friends, then I'm jealous. Like, that sounds awesome. 150 friends. I mean, like I've got a community of, say, like 30 or 40 people that I see regularly that I really like, and I consider myself quite lucky. But like 150 is a fantastic number. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and we live in a generation in which people will say, "Oh my God, I have like 5,000 friends in Facebook."
Well, that's the other part of this. That's the other part of this is the digital part, right? So the happiness that you're talking about, people are searching that without knowing it online, and that's how we're getting so polarized, right? Is we're all finding our little online communities and searching for that. And do you think that that's going to be part of the answer then?
Well, I think that like reducing the bono is going to take you away from those online communities and take you towards very real relationships. I think you might search for those online communities if you accept the bono, because you would only do that. It's one way to have a relationship. I'm not saying it's not a relationship, but there's so many more rounded relationships, and you wouldn't have any inhibitions from taking advantage or going into those rounded relationships. You wouldn't necessarily go towards the internet. You would do that because you were a little bit shy or a bit embarrassed or had a bit like issues. So I think that, it's very important to have very real relationships and not the digital relationships. And I think that those can help as well. I'm not saying that they're bad, but you're definitely going to want more of that FaceTime and that time, that man-to-man time, that face-to-face time, yeah.
Because especially, I don't know, for people like us in this podcast world and our listeners and stuff, like part of the reason why this is all attractive to us is because we don't have a large community around us that we can talk to about a lot of stuff. I mean, that's why we even started this, to have these interesting conversations. And so the online thing seems to be helping a little bit. At least people find some commonality with, with like-minded people.
I mean, it definitely helps. I mean, I get a lot of satisfaction out of this as well. For me to come home after work and lie down and listen to these podcasts is great. You can't rely completely on your community all the time. So whatever sports and hobby you have, or, if you like to go for a jog or do some yoga every now and then, or listen to podcasts, I mean, that all helps. It's all great. Yeah. But you can't replace, that face-to-face sort of community with it. But, it definitely helps, and it definitely is great.
It's like warm-up. The online community can be your warm-up to get the courage to talk to real people. Because then all of a sudden you have all these online friends, and then your confidence gets up a little bit, and then next thing you know, you're on the bus next to buddy, and you're like, "Hey man, nice shirt." Boom, he punches you.
There you go. Exactly.
So how does this connect again back to the original thing about basically the corporate slavery and that type of thing? So how do you connect the removing your bono and addressing these things like in this extreme way you're talking about with separating yourself from that
so I can only
soldier world?
I can use my life as an example because I definitely grew up in the soldier world in a very real way. But okay, so I might have done corporate jobs before, and I might have been like a kind of a slave to that institution at some point. And removing my bonos kind of gradually got me out of it, sort of indirectly. By choosing what I wanted to do and being able to not have fear for choosing what I wanted to do. So, if I was sitting at a desk job or wearing a suit or, that sort of thing, and, I wasn't happy with myself, or for me to go out there and attack those bono directly, eventually was well, why am I doing this? I would just quit that job and I would slowly gravitate away from that and gravitate to what I really like doing. And, So if you look at my life right now, I wake up, kind of whenever I want to, but usually at around like 10:30 or 11. And then I do kind of yoga and exercise. I have to keep my body, relatively good because I'm not like, I do modeling about 3 or 4 times a month just because they need foreigners in Japan to kind of, for whatever role. I could be a father role, or it could be more like, fashion, or it could be anything. But, yeah, so that's about half my paycheck is from modeling and that sort of stuff. And then, so I guess I have to what I'm going to tell you right now is the sort of pessimistic way of looking at it, is that I wake up in the morning and I have to exercise, and then I've got to eat healthy food because, I got to watch my figure, and then I got to ride my bicycle around the city because it's good exercise and it's burning calories. And then I teach all day with all these students. And then at night, I sometimes work at a bar. So basically, like, I go to bed late at night and I've been working all day. Or even if I don't work at the bar at night, like I still go out, with my students afterwards, which is kind of work as well, I guess. So technically, I'm working from morning until night without stopping at all. But from my perspective and from what I consider the obvious perspective is that I wake up in the morning, like kind of whenever I want to. And, I love exercising. I love doing yoga, and I love the food that I cook. And I'm so grateful to be able to have the time to cook and cook what I want. And then I consider all my students my friends because I don't leave anything on the table. Like, I'm very honest with them, and I tell, if they ask me about what I did, I tell them exactly what I did, and I feel very open with them. And because I'm so out there, they feel comfortable as well. So they've all become my friends, my very good friends. So basically, I'm paid to have conversations with my friends in, like random cafes or restaurants throughout the city, which I love doing. And I love riding my bicycle every day because I have no health insurance. I've got no monthly bills, mortgages, loans, no connections to any sort of bank. I mean, it's all cash business as well. So I have one bank account, but besides that, I don't have a lot of like things tying me to the society. And then afterwards, when I go to the bar job, I chose that job specifically because my friend's the owner, and it's awesome working there. I absolutely love working there. And it's cool to be able to hang out with the customers and just talk to people. And then the other days that I'm going for dinner with my students and stuff after work, I love doing that too. So it's like from morning until night, I never have one moment where I wake up and it's like, oh man, I have to do this today. Or, oh shit, like, oh man, I really didn't want to have to do that, but now I have to do this. Every morning and every day of my life is just happy. It's exactly what I want to be doing. And I work for myself, so I can take off as much time as I want. So I go traveling about, 3 times a year. And like, for example, like my living expenses, like I don't necessarily make a fortune. I make it right. But for my living expenses, like I live in a share house with my friends. So I get to live in this awesome place that I really want to live in a good part of town. But because I'm sharing it with my friends, it's great. It's awesome. And like, I don't have the privacy issues or embarrassment issues. So I love living with them. It's awesome. And I have a relationship that's not tied around jealousy, where I'm completely free to do whatever I want to do, and she's completely free to do whatever she wants to do. And that allows me to not necessarily place a lot of stress on her or on myself, or feel a lot of responsibility or guilt about anything. I can just, in 2017, we have condoms. It's fantastic. Like, you can just be free. You don't have to impregnate somebody, give somebody a disease, or, you can just be happy and open and honest. And look, in 2017, there are a lot of stresses and there are a lot of issues that we have to deal with. And I'm not saying that that's not the case, but there's also a lot of advantages as well. And it's about leaving yourself open to realize which windows are opening and which ones are closing, and allowing those open windows to, and taking advantage of them. And like, in 2017, women are free and they have rights and they can do whatever they want. And like, so can, all sorts of races and people. And so finally we're free, and it's about taking advantage of that, and in some ways we might be inhibited and have stress and have responsibility with these phones and technology and devices and corporations. And yes, we might suffer a bit of slack there, but the places where we are free, we should be definitely taking advantage of that as much as possible, because that old sort of marriage paradigm and monogamy paradigm and a lot of those sort of, antiquated sort of Calvinist sort of, religious ideals just aren't really applicable anymore and don't necessarily need to be taken heed to. You can just be a little bit more free right now. And I think in 2017, it's nice to take advantage of that. You have to.
For a
Sorry, that
limited
was a long
time
rant.
only.
Yeah. While you can, man. Fuck it.
Do you think this is like, sometimes I think like even being able to podcast and shit is just like, you know, it might seem, and it might last my whole life yet, but, you know, I feel like a part of me feels like, you know, in 100 years from now or 200 years from now, people are going to look back at this as being just a little glimpse
Of what, freedom?
of freedom and, you know,
Sure.
individuality, and, you know, and it's just all going to go to collectivism. And
Sure, potentially, but I mean, like, also
I mean, looking
at
out
the
your
future-
window gives me a pretty scary picture of collectivism.
Yeah. No, definitely. But like I said, there's always going to be windows that close and there's always going to be ones that open. There always will be. There's always to make yourself adaptable as possible so that when the ones close, you realize that, and then you're also going to realize which ones open. And if it ever, you know, comes crashing down, I'm not afraid to die, dude. I mean, I've had an amazing life. I'm not scared to die at all. But that being said, like until that happens, there will always be ways to take advantage of things. And, you know, you don't have to be, you know, pessimistic about things. And, you know, even looking at the future is kind of illogical anyways. I mean, we only have now. And I mean, it's all about taking advantage of now and kind of preparing yourself or thinking about the future. I mean, I'm not that well read, but like, you know, a lot of the great thinkers, I mean, that's something that they immediately, you know, propose to everybody is that like, look, you should live in the now. You should just think about now and just take advantage of now as much as possible. And whatever advantages you have afforded to you, just, live right now.
And maybe even attacking that bono and getting rid of that bono for somebody might be like keeping that corporate job. You know, maybe just a whole new outlook on the way that job is. You know, it could change all that, but it could still mean you stay in, you know, a similar thing.
Maybe you're just happier doing it.
Yeah.
There should be no reason why you couldn't look forward to it every day. I mean, like, we're all curious, you know, adventurous human beings. I mean, even if it is a corporate job, like, look, if it's so strict that you can't enjoy yourself, if there's no possible way that you could possibly conceive of enjoying yourself, then yeah, you should probably get out. You should go work at McDonald's and live in, like, you know, some crappy share house with 5 people and, like, you know, somehow get by or something like that. But I mean, a lot of our jobs, there are ways that we could just, like, we put the stress on ourselves a little bit. Like, so by reducing the bono, you're able to see a little bit more clearly about how even the lifestyle that you have right now, you're able to enjoy it more.
Yeah. So what about the other expenses? You talked about having minimal expenses. I mean, do you have the same stuff as us as far as, like, you know, your cell phone and your internet and cable and insurance and all that kind of stuff? Or, I mean, I know obviously you don't have some
the
of
wonderful
that.
thing about working for myself is that it's a tax write-off. Everything I do is a tax write-off because it's like my cell phone is for my work, right? And
but you still have to pay
like,
those expenses. I mean, you might not have to pay. You might not have to pay taxes on that expense or whatever. But I mean, you still have to pay them. Like,
but if you are working for yourself, if you're like kind of, you know, a sole proprietor or whatever, and you're able to like look at your cell phone bill and, like, you know, a lot of your expense, like going out with students and stuff like that, or, you know, the stuff that you eat with students, or, you know, your transportation costs and stuff like that. If you can write that off, it makes a big like. You might be earning a fortune on a monthly basis on paper, but then, like, you're with your tax and how much it comes off, and then there are these insurance payments and blah 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 blah. Like, it ends up cutting that monthly paycheck down massively. But if you are able to be independent and work for yourself, and then, like, sort of write that stuff off, it makes a big difference. And you don't really need to earn that much throughout the month to really, you know, have to pay for that. Like, it's surprisingly, like, how much gets subtracted from your paycheck. Like, if you're somehow stuck in a corporation that has also, like, it's like the corporate insurance that's incorporated as well, and, you know, whatever taxes and other crap, you know, like, somehow being, like, involved in that institution. Yeah, I mean, you end up with very little, like, even if on paper you think you might be earning a lot. Yeah.
Or your expenses
like I
are
said,
through the roof. Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, like, yeah, my living costs are cheap, but I also, like, you know, if you live with people that are your friends, you tend to go out a little less. I still go out, but I don't necessarily go out in the same way. Like, we all cook together, and, like, you know, like, it's nice to cook together. I don't have to go out to restaurants and stuff like that, and as much. We take advantage of, like, go to beaches and parks and have picnics. The cool thing about Japan is it's very free like that because it's so much on lockdown on that corporate scale. Like, people, like, you know, walking within the cracks aren't really looked at. So, like, you can drink outside anywhere. You can sit anywhere. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. Like, especially as a foreigner, it's like, well, you know, that's his culture. We'll just let him do his thing. Like, you're so outside of their lives that somehow existing in this foreign country is like the ultimate freedom. I love racism.
Is it easy to get into Japan? I know a couple of people that have ended up there.
Yeah. I mean, like anybody could teach English here. It's great. I mean, you don't necessarily earn as much as you used to. Like the average wage has gone down a lot, but you can come here and you can really be free. I mean, you're not going to be beaten up. There's no like angry asshole that's like, spent like 20 hours in a gym and like is coming out there just looking to like take out his rage on people or anything. Everybody's nice. Everybody's polite.
You're not being looked down on the street as being the gaijin.
You might be, but like, so what? Like even, gaijin, or, he's stupid, so he doesn't know how to do anything. Or, even if that, so what? Like, I mean, that affords me an incredible amount of freedom and reduces a lot of expectation. Not all racism is bad for me. I don't know if somebody else suffers from it and different types of racism. But the racism in a sense that like, he's a foreigner, so he's an idiot. He doesn't know how to do anything. We're just going to let him do his thing. And if he wants to sit there in the middle of that park on that, like we're just going to let him do that. And he can ride around, just, wear his tank top and his flip flops because, he's a foreigner. He doesn't know any better. Yeah, that's awesome.
When I first moved to Calgary, I kept the Ontario plates. And I actually reinsured my vehicle back in Ontario again because I figured the Ontario plates, I had them for about a year and a half because I figured I'd just get away with a little more, Hey, sorry, I cut you off, or, I was learning
You
a new
mean when
city.
you get pulled over and you're like, I'm from Ontario.
Yeah, I don't know, man, sorry. It didn't seem to work.
Yeah, managing expectation is a beautiful thing. I mean, if I could study one thing, like, intensely from somebody who was an expert, it's about managing expectation. It makes life a whole lot easier.
You have some baseline tips for managing, like obviously showing up in no suit was one.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it all ties in with the whole getting rid of the bono thing. Like if you're capable of, like I said, walking down the street in women's clothes or something like that, you've destroyed everybody's expectations. It's about doing crazy things. It's about being a little bit crazy, but within logic. Because like I said, I mean, we do more illogical things that we think are normal on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, like if wearing a suit, I mean, where's the logic in like I understand that it's a corporate rule or whatever, but in the greater sense of things, or like some fears or inhibitions that we have, or some like biases or prejudices that we have. I mean, there's no logic in them whatsoever. So it's about the more honest and more logical you are, the more crazy you'll be perceived, and that's good. Mm-hmm. But as long as you're within that logic and reason, then you're not hurting anybody, and people will actually kind of respect you for it, like more than you think, probably.
I think there's something about being your true self as well that shines. Like without living in that fear and having, you're obviously following your path the way you're supposed to, and you're living in your truth. And I think that it does resonate. It's not scientific or anything like that, but I do think that rubs off on people.
Yeah, it's also, it's about happiness. Like, I mean, if you're smiling every day, and if you emitting like a positive energy and pure love, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, people are kind of happy to have you around, no matter who you are. Like, even if you're a bit crazy, and, like I said, the more kind of crazy and out there you are, the more you just kind of get into who you really want to be. It's like, yeah, they might not get you. They might not think that, like, you're a positive example or anything like that, but they love having you around because you're positive and you're smiling and you're helpful and you're kind, and they think you're original and different, and it definitely rubs off. Yeah.
That's good. They don't want to talk to you, but they say have a good feeling about you.
No, they definitely want to talk to you. They definitely want to talk to you.
Yeah, you're kind of like taking the role of the court jester. The court jester is the only one who can speak truth, and tell it to the king like it is.
Yeah.
Everybody's afraid to do that, but since you're the court jester, you have that freedom. He's kind of crazy, so nobody like that seriously, but that gives you a certain freedom, and in the Native American cultures, the Navajo and all those others, there's they have this character of the sacred clown. She's the one that his role is kind of like disrupt tradition a little bit, go into the rituals and, make a little ruckus, and sometimes, like not beat people up, but like kind of like annoying people in order to try to I don't know, not desacralized ritual, but to try to show that taking things too seriously is not really the true path towards, spirituality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look, I mean, taking things seriously, and if you really looked at those things, even if they were serious and somehow they were illogical and like they didn't necessarily benefit your happiness, but I think it's what they are logical towards and who they are benefiting are those corporations. So it's tying into that. It's about being independent and making decisions that for your own happiness. It's like if anything that you're doing that's illogical is definitely benefiting. Like I said, the whole energy is not created or destroyed, right? It's benefiting somebody. And that somebody just happens to be corporations. So it's like either do you want to, spend your day from morning till night, and your energy, do you want that energy to nourish you or nourish a corporation, basically?
Sure.
And yeah.
But let's kind of like touch upon a few things here. The kind of freedom that you are enjoying right now in Japan, and the way that you are like living your life. How do you think that someone who is in a marriage with a couple of kids, how do you think they will be able to try to
That's a tough one.
Get rid of the bono?
That's a tough one because once you've already created the foundation of a marriage that's based on sort of traditional principles of like you're wearing the wedding band and I'm yours and you are mine and we own each other and that sort of that might have been okay, I don't know, 200 years ago, but it doesn't seem to be possible anymore because now women are independent and equal in society, and the whole concept of you being somebody else's and belonging to each other, and there just seems less reasons to want to restrict one another, like whereas before they might have got pregnant or something like that, like now we can we don't have to suffer those same sort of so in the middle of a marriage to say like, hey, by the way, now I've decided that we should be free and we should like not have jealousy and we should not have this possessiveness and look, it's gonna take convincing for some, and for me it was lucky in my relationship because I started off like that from the very beginning. I said, this is how I believe and this is how I live, and you can take it or leave it, but it's worked tremendously well for me. But that was like I said from the start, in the middle of something, but to have like a conversation with your wife and say, look, the world changes every 50 or 100 years. The way we look at things changes, and the reality is that the world is changing and the environment is changing and everything's changing, and that you can either be a forerunner, you can be somebody at the head of that's thinking like originally and it's thinking ahead of everybody else, and like as it changes. And I think that's your real chance at happiness in this world, because if you're a straggler, if you're somebody that's living under a sort of more traditional paradigm, like it's just going to be harder, I think. So you need to be adaptable, essentially. And if you can look at your partner and say, look, I love you and respect you, and you can look at the world around you and whatever situation you're in, I mean, without disrespecting anybody or anything, but kind of like say, look, like I think the world is going this way. I think society's going this way. And I want to leave myself as adaptable as possible to take advantage of what's good out there and not suffer as much about what's potentially bad about this new change. And adaptable, it's about being adaptable. And it's about saying, like, look, first we're going to attack these bono as much as we can. I refuse to be jealous my whole life. I refuse to be angry my whole life. I refuse to be shy and ashamed my whole life. And then once you start attacking that, and the windows that open become more clear, and I think, it's one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm recommending to you to go and check out Chris Ryan's work. He has a podcast, Tangentially Speaking, and he also wrote Sex at Dawn, which I think that you
it sounds like it's right up your alley.
Yeah, with these things about polyamory and these relationships and how, basically his argument is that back in the days when we were hunter-gatherers, this idea of monogamy was not the way that these ancient men used to behave themselves. That monogamy became something that was installed after the agricultural revolution, and it's kind of like something that is not really natural to the human animal.
Well, it might have existed in a very short blink of our existence. If you put human existence into like the time of a movie, the amount of time of monogamy wouldn't even last the credits. Like it's a very like Connor Habib would say, it's incredibly perverse. It's like the most perverse thing in society. Yeah,
something to that effect. Yeah.
So it's look, I mean, under those environment, under those conditions, maybe that made sense at that time, but it's not going to make sense forever, and we are going to change, we are going to adapt, and it's about looking at your environment and figuring out what makes sense now the best. But without having to get that onto like some sort of mathematical or scientific level, I think once again, the best thing that we can do is attack those bono. Right now, go out there and attack those bono, and everything else comes into play. Will make sense.
So I know you you had this revelation of you wanted to do everything before you were 30, but then along that journey you tried stuff like ayahuasca and fasting and detoxes, and you had all these experiences. Was there any of those that stand out to you to be like shifts or awakenings or anything like that? Or was it like this gradual sort of thing into the bono?
Like I think I was already well kind of down the path when I did ayahuasca. I think if you are incredibly bono ridden, you might just shit yourself and cry and scream, and like it might be a horrible experience. For me, it was this like wonderful experience where I sat in the jungle and I was rained on, and it was just beautiful. And before I kind of went on this journey, a lot of the acid trips that I had were a little bit darker, but after the mushroom and acid was the trips became a lot more just beautiful and clear, and I just wasn't suffering from as many like sort of internal things. So I think the experiences were pretty, they were really nice, but I don't know how revealing they were. What is revealing for me, and like I said, it's not necessarily that the fasting makes perfect sense, just as, just logically, we come from a time where 3 set regular meals doesn't really make sense, It doesn't really make sense as far as human beings are concerned. But look, we don't know exactly how human beings were, 10, 20,000 years ago. And, but we can guess. I mean, we can look at like chimpanzees, we can look, anthropologists. I mean, we can guess to a good extent, and we're evolved to be kind of that. And if we're sitting at a desk job and suffering tremendous amounts of stress and like coming home and, watching like 4 hours of TV just to kind of relieve that stress, doesn't exactly make sense. Like you need to kind of gravitate back towards what we're evolved to be, or as close as you can guess, or as close as what you can, what you assume like natural is, what a human being is. And as far as all the experiences that I had in my life from traveling, like, I spent like a month in the jungle in Colombia by myself because I was I had a lot of like issues about like what I looked like, and issues with being alone, and issues with needing things and being clingy and stuff like that. Now, my way of directly attacking that was just going up into the jungle near Minca from where is it, near Santa Marta, up into the Sierra Nevada around there for like a month, and just kind of like dealing with myself with no like TV and no nothing, just like waking up every day and just dealing with myself.
What year was this?
This was 2014, maybe 2014. Yeah, 2014. Okay,
well, Colombia wasn't as dangerous as it was.
No. Colombia's amazing now. Yeah. No, it's amazing now. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my travels were also kind of just giving myself an environment where I could directly attack my bono. It's like, no matter how confident I might have been about the way I handled myself in Japan's environment, if you get too used to that, like you might think that you're sweet, but you put yourself in Africa or in, like Bolivia, or if you put yourself into sort of like a Middle Eastern sort of environment, and you want to still see that you can hold up under those conditions. You still want to see that, like no matter how bono-less you think you are you still bono-less under those conditions, under those environments? And man, like traveling just kind of was a way to test it. Like you always want to test yourself to see if you still have the bono, right? You always want to check and make sure. Like no matter how good you think you're off, like, oh, my bono's gone. No, you got to check. You got to make sure. And sometimes putting yourself under different environments or under different states of consciousness is a way to make sure of that. I mean, if I smoke weed and all of a sudden flip out and get all angry and shit, then no, I probably haven't cleared all my bono. Or if I'm in the middle of like India and ew, I'm like, oh, these dirty people, how could they do this? You know, like, you know, if my bono's still there, man, like it's a very clear cut case, you know, so it's like, occasionally it's about, there's no reason why I can't live anywhere or be anywhere and be happy everywhere. And I do love absolutely everywhere, and every place has its advantages and disadvantages. But like, for me, yeah, more of the journeys and experiences have been about checking to make sure that the bono are gone or discovering new ones and finding an environment to attack them.
That sounds like a good way to recognize it is through judgments or resentments. Like if you see yourself or feel yourself judging things or people, and that could be.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
There's still work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, like it's the weirdest thing, you know, like picking up that cockroach 10 times might relieve that. Like it's weird how it's all connected. Like you might, like eradicating the weirdest little quirk or fear that you have. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't love all, you know, food, drinks. Like, you know, people have these likes and dislikes that they seem to define their personalities around. But what if you just liked it all? What if you liked all food? And what if you liked all drinks? And what if you liked, you know, kind of all, you know, religious, different types of religious people or ethnicities or, you know, political stances or whatever, you know, like, what if you just were like, fuck it, yeah, I just like everybody and like everything. You know, like, why would you have to hate specific things, or why would you define your personality on what you dislike? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, that's good advice, man. Especially in this climate. We were just talking about how much to pay attention to the media or the fucking political climate right now, and it's like it's dragging me down.
Yeah. If you get too into it. Yeah.
Especially you, because you can't even use mushrooms to help clean the slate. You just gotta fucking meditate that shit out. I don't know.
Yoga it away.
Definitely the woman's clothes down Main Street, man. That's where you're at.
Or at least next live cast.
I don't have to deal with that, Bono.
Just
I'm
wear
fine
a dress
with that
on
one.
YouTube.
I'm fine. I
dress on YouTube.
I dressed up as a woman once in 1995 for Halloween, and that got rid of that Bono. That's fine. My best buddy right away when he saw me, he's like, Marie. He thought I was my mom.
I've seen you fucking bonoing off the walls at the office. Ready to bono your top.
Are there any like confessions though? Do you guys have like any specific bonos that you thought might have come up during this conversation?
Yeah, fear of conflict a bit for me, like. You know, during work, during, you know, office time, or even on the show, probably a little bit. Like fear, and I don't know where that's coming from, but I mean,
me specifically.
No, okay. No, just in general, really. Like I try to avoid conflict for the most part, right? I mean, I'll get, you know, I can defend myself and I can do all that kind of stuff, or I can talk about certain things. I can get all excited about things, but in general, I don't know. Try to avoid that.
Does the conflict bother you? Like, I mean, even if you avoid it, like, are you avoiding it because you just don't care, or are you avoiding it because you're afraid of the conflict?
I don't think I'm afraid. It just bothers me. It makes me uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, well, it shouldn't have to bother you, so that sucks. Yeah,
so I don't know how, but how do you get rid of that one? Do you start a fight? Get in a fight? I mean, I could do that probably.
No, but I mean, like, if people have issues, if people have problems, it's like, it shouldn't touch you, man. It should just completely wash over you. I mean, like, unless it's a survival issue, you know, like, which is instinct. I mean, you can't do much about that. But if it's not a direct survival, if like some guy's pissed off about you, say, I don't know, like what happens at work? Like you.
Well, it's even. Let's just say it's not even related to me. Let's say it's like even two people having a conflict, and me watching even.
But why would that bother you though?
Well, because I don't know. That's the big question.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, look, I mean, I think you need to look at yourself to think, become a cage fighter. No, I'm joking. I mean, like, if you look into yourself and if you can kind of find a reason for that, like, if you can, it might be related to some sort of fear of, I don't know, physical abuse, or it might be some sort of fear of being disliked or not liked, or It might be some sort of fear of you being dragged into it and how your image is tainted and how you're worried about your image. So if somehow you attack your image, or if somehow you attack like the expectation that people have on you somehow, like if you just become that goofy court jester in the office that like everybody thinks is a little crazy, but is genuinely a nice guy, somehow that conflict won't be as applicable to you. Like, I don't know exactly where that's coming from, but there's a couple of different directions you could go to kind of, attack different other things, and somehow you might find that just disappears somehow.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, that's some good ideas there. I mean, I did get in a couple fights with friends in school, and it turned out like they both sort of like cheated me to the point where then everybody thought like I lost, or there was a problem with like a couple high school fights with friends, and where everybody gathers around and watches, and that could have like an effect on me now. And then,
sure,
keep them coming.
Losing's fun. I mean, losing's good times. People have issues with losing, and it's like this competitive edge. Like you got to win all the time. Like why? Dude? Losing is like
well, no,
as fun.
But I didn't really lose. It was a draw.
A better story. Oh, here we go. He's getting all defensive. He's getting all defensive. I didn't lose. It was a tie.
It was a draw. But he lied and said that I lost and that he won, right? So it was one of those things. Like it was like a injustice to me, right? So. Maybe that's
right.
what it was, right?
I lost, motherfucker. Yeah, dude, I fucking lost that fight.
I fucking lose all the time. I suck at shit.
I lost the other one. I lost the other one for sure. The guy was like twice my size. It was tough.
So
he threw me around like a rag doll, I think.
So does that counteract fake it till you make it, or can you still do that? Or does that count somehow?
What's the fake it till you make it? What's that?
That's where you just like convince yourself you're good. You've got something figured out until you sort of figure it out. I've done it at work with like when I was more inexperienced. I remember like looking at drawings and my boss being like, "You got it," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, man, I got it." And then you're like off in the corner, like, "What the fuck is this thing?"
Yeah.
I think then you eventually figure it out. I mean, now you'd have a hard time throwing a drawing past me that I couldn't figure out.
Yeah, even in the recovery community and stuff, fake it till you make it. I mean, and the spiritual community, like that is sort of a thing, right? I mean, through intention and stuff, you can get there by sort of failing as you go along, right? Just faking it.
Seems like a dangerous game though, because you might just become reliant on faking it. And just fake it forever. Like you might as well just be completely honest. Like, I fucked it up, and I can't do that.
So how do you get rid of that?
Maybe I'm already stuck in a fake.
But not be stressed about it necessarily. Just like shit.
But there's probably a fear there, right? A fear of like you don't want to admit that you don't know those drawings, or you don't want to admit failure. So there's a fear of failure there, Darren, for you. So you're faking it.
I do have a fear
because of your bono of failure. So how do you then get rid of that bono?
Well,
I tried to fail. I'm failing at podcasting.
Go ahead and just fail. Fail at everything. Purposely lose every game you play with all your friends. Purposely fucking get rejected by every woman you see. I mean, like, just fail. Fuck. Yeah. But I mean, like, the fake it's I don't know about that, eh? I don't know. It might be a way for some people, but I fake it till you make it. Nah, doesn't resonate with me. I haven't really thought about it, but I would definitely go along the honesty route about, look, I'm not able
just
to do
saying,
that.
I can't read that. I don't know what's going on.
But that's a big part of it. The honesty part is a big part of it, because the more you're honest about your shit, and because I mean I've had to work on this for a while, right? A few years now, but I think the more you're honest about it, the more you're not going to worry about what people think, and I think the more genuine honesty you can kind of live by, I think there's less bono attached to it. There's less shame. There's less.
Sure. If you go to a job interview, most people are not going to be 100% honest about, their experience in their resume. If they ask you, hey, do you know this computer program? You will say, yeah, sure. I'm very familiar with it, just to try to get into that job. You are 100% honest. Some employers might, be grateful for that honesty, but some might say, well,
some employers might wait.
Yeah, but you could look at it that if you don't want to work there, then if they're not going to hire you for your honesty, then fuck it. You could look at that bigger picture like that as well.
Well, there's this whole thing about this society and the corporate world, feeding on the bono. Corporations tend to be very deceptive. If you go to a car dealer, and you say, hey, is this model better than your competitors? They will say, yeah, sure. This is the car you're looking for. This is the one you want. They're not going to be 100% honest and say, you know what, you're probably going to want to buy, the car that they're selling the other company.
Yeah.
Oh, did we lose Ricard?
We might have lost Ricard. Something.
Yeah, it looks frozen or something.
Yeah, and the quality of your...
Brad, that doesn't make it right, though, right? Just because you bump in all these people, that are dishonest through corporations or salesmen or whatever, like, that doesn't mean you can't live an honest life to that point,
Sure. It's like, for example, the fake it till you make it argument. I mean, the first time someone asked me, can you do me a cover for a book? I was say, yeah, sure I can, I wouldn't be 100% honest maybe of saying, I have no fucking idea of how to do that. You have to kind of like saying, well, I'll say yes and I'll figure it out as I go.
Yeah. So that's the fine line, I guess, between a little bit of faking it but not really outright lying, right?
I don't know the answer,
Confidence. I mean, why can't you call that confidence, right? Why can't you just be confident that you're going to make it work?
Well, because sometimes it's different. I mean, among creative people, I think there's a lot of lack of confidence. There's a lot of
I feel like it's the opposite.
No, well, not in my case. I guess it's.
I feel like all the creative people
every time I start a project, I think that I'm not going to be able to do it or finish it. It's not until I'm in the process of it, and I say, you know what, yeah, I'm doing it, and I'll be able to finish it.
I feel like creative people are the opposite. Like they're always confident.
Yeah, it's like you're climbing a mountain. You look up and you say, "Bob, fuck, how am I going to climb this motherfucker?" You probably have to lie to yourself and say, "Yeah, well, just one step at a time."
But then you get up the mountain, so you weren't lying to yourself. So that's how the fake it till you make it works, because you made it, so you weren't faking it. You had it all along. Well, it's looking like I'm not able to get Ricard back.
Exactly, right? Probably you had it all along. You had to kind of like lie to yourself a little bit, made a bit of self-deception, in order to realize that, yeah, you could do it all along. You had the confidence all along. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Are we going to be able to
No, I've tried a few times. I think we'll just wrap it up.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Ricard for coming on the show.
Yes, this was amazing, guys. And actually, I listened to the show in which you
read the email.
Read the email.
Oh,
and
wow.
I said, this guy is interesting. Now, how interesting that I managed to speak to him. I think that I think that he mentioned in the email that he wouldn't be able to write a book or something. Well, maybe writing is not his approach, but I bet that someone like him could be able to maybe create a YouTube channel or something.
Teach on the YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that he has a lot of these things that he was talking about resonated with me, and I think that if he manages to get in contact with someone like Chris Ryan, I think that Chris Ryan will also be agree with a lot of the things that he's discussing here, and also as a sideway, guys. Don't you think that Ricard looks a lot like Dr. John Ward?
No.
No,
not really.
He almost looks like a John Ward's younger brother. And I mean this as a compliment.
He reminds me of somebody else, but I can't place it right now.
Conor Habib?
Well,
No.
no.
The love child of Conor Habib and John Ward? I think
Oh
we
my
better
God.
wrap this up before it gets too carried away.
Grimerica listeners to put, one screenshot of Ricard alongside
John
a
Ward.
photo of John Ward, and I'm sure some people will agree with me.
All right.
I guess we'll see. Like I say, big thanks to Ricard for coming on the show. We'll find out if there's any info or website he wants us to plug. We'll plug it next intro, and we'll have it in the show notes for this episode, of course. Big thanks, Ricard. Come back anytime. What else we got? Check out grimerica.ca/support, guys. Check out all the ways you can help us keep kind of growing.
Yeah.
And having these chats without any commercials or fuck all, and kind of being able to do whatever we want.
Yeah. And we have an extra content feed now, the Black Budget support feed. And to do that, you donate anything, right? Any monthly donation, any one-time donation.
If I get an email from PayPal, then I just send the link.
Yeah.
Whether it's a one-time donation or a new subscriber or, we can figure it out for sure.
Everything's in the notes. Contact information, P.O. Box, emails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, don't forget that, people can follow Grimerica on Facebook. They're also on Minds. And there's also a Grimerica subreddit. You can go there and, check it out and maybe, contribute there, link to interesting info.
Actually, that's a good point, right? I gotta start putting all those links in the show notes now.
That'd be reddit.com/r/Grimerica, I think.
Yeah.
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 We're on Gab too, so there's a bunch of different networks that we're on right now, and we'll see how long it lasts. But we're just trying to, just sort of with all the censorship everywhere else as well, we're trying to spread out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, the donations help. They help us do this. We tried our first video cast tonight. We're able to do things like that.
Yeah.
So check out grimerica.ca/support, guys. And jump on a monthly if you can. Do it one time if you can. If you can't do that, you can share the show, review the show, spam gram, sign up for the newsletter, sign strangers up for the newsletter. And you can always check out grimerica.ca/swag to get your Grimerica gear. Anything else?
That's about it.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. The recording stopped. We're still on YouTube, though. I'll shut that down, too. Thanks for checking it out, guys.
Was there a chat or anything like that?
Yeah, we got a thumbs down because there's no audio for the first little while.
Oh, first little while, really? Like how far in?
Like 10 minutes.
No.
I turned it back on.
Come on.
So do you need time to get ready? For
What
the
are we
intro?
doing? Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Unless we just have Red on, I can get ready while he chats.
Yeah, I'll
You just
keep
jump
this.
right in it? Well, you're not going to keep that going. No. We got to separate it off.
Okay.
People are going to get confused.
Okay, we're going to go. We'll be back.
Yeah.
How do I stop it? What's this one?